All right, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Whenever you hear this message, I pray that you're poised to receive, to accept, and to respond to words of wisdom. Hashem. So, yesterday, we had our our first module to the intro to Vodun spirituality. And um, at one point in the discussion, our instructor, Akbayanu, was emphasizing the importance of knowing yourself. And of course, my ears perked up, right? Because that's one of the, I think, the key disciplines of our practice. Obviously, is the title of this video, right? And he went on to explain it in a way that I really appreciated, which was looking at the elements. And a lot of you will identify with this, right? When you look at your own constitution, your spiritual constitution, you may be a water spirit, or you may have a watery spirit, right? You flow, and you may want to, make use of that. You may want to turn to that because it's a strength, and it's natural, and it makes sense for you to rely upon what you do, right? But at certain points, the situation doesn't call for watery attributes and characteristics, right? And so you end up being too watery and miss the opportunity, or inundate the environment with something that's not useful, right? And so you don't want to overdo it with the water. But likewise, if you're, let's say something happens, you're a watery spirit, and you've gotten upset, and so now you want to turn to the fire. But in this circumstance, you and the fire are going to cancel one another out. And so you're going to the fire because that's how you're feeling, but then, you end up squelching everything that was supposed to be, right, heating up. Conversely, this is where divination becomes important. You could be a watery spirit. You're going to encounter fire. Ordinarily, this could be a conflict, but as it were, there's iron between you and the fire. And so that iron is going to enable you to, create steam. And if you go back to the olden days, hey, steam is like is allows you to have enough power to drive a train, right? You could drive a train coast to coast off steam power, right? But you need that iron in between the fire and the water in order to do that. And so the key, however, is that you know that you're a water spirit. All right, you've got it. That's ground zero. You have to know who you are, what you're made of, okay, in order to assess what's the best thing to do or not. All right, and so in some more practical terms, I can think of really significant decisions that I made in my life without taking full assessment of who I am, and to really state it more clearly, being in denial of who I am, overlooking who I am, miscalculating who I am, right? If you remember the story of the the ugly duckling, who's hanging out with the ducks and thinks that he's ugly because he's actually a swan, right? Or the chicken that's the baby hawk that's hanging out with the chickens, and doesn't understand that he can fly, ends up being able to fly and actually swoop down and eat the chickens. It's like, I can say within my own experience, I suffer from a identity crisis, right? Or a mistaken identity, right? And as a result, making decisions, establishing relationships, and investing time, energy, etc., in people and conditions and circumstances that were definitely not in my best interest. Okay. And fortunately, thankfully, I live to tell the tale and can look back upon my experiences and say, oh, I know how I ended up in that situation in the first place. I know I ended up with this person or that person or these people anyway, right? It's because I was not really owning up to who I am and what I am meant to bring into the world, what my contribution really is supposed to be, who I'm really supposed to serve, and then what kind of environment, what kind of tools, what kind of skills and equipment do I need to actually execute that mission at the highest level of proficiency, right? And so the more clear I become about who I am, the easier it is to assess, where to be and where not to be, and the more quickly I can understand. When Ifa tells me one thing or another thing, it's clear to me because I understand what my nature is and what my position is. Okay? And this isn't something that's just particular to me, right? This is something that within the context of, let's say, analytical psychology or Jungian psychology, this would fall into the category of what Joseph Campbell called the hero's journey. The hero always, or typically, I shouldn't say always, but the hero typically is suffering from an identity crisis or a case of mistaken identity within himself. It's like everybody's pointing at him and say, hey, you're the one, and he's saying, no, you guys got that all mixed up. I don't even know who the one, I don't even know what the one is all about. Like, I'm just here to hack computers, right? If you think about the Matrix, right? But it is a I guess a characteristic and an attribute of the human experience that we have to discover ourselves, right? We have to discover ourselves. Ifa reinforces this, right? He says, we knelt to choose our destinies in heaven. It's when we got to the world that we became anxious, or it's what we met in the world that made us anxious, right? Don't you know that a person can't choose his destiny unless he dies and is born again? This is, several verses of Ifa begin that way. But it reinforces the idea that we choose, right? Our prenatal choice, Akun Leyan, is when we choose all of our natural gifts and talents. We choose, who will be our parents. We choose where we will thrive. We choose even our frailties and our foibles and catastrophes. We choose. We say, I know this is what's going to happen at this stage of life, right? And that means we have this capacity in the spiritual realm, in the prenatal state, to foresee everything that will become our fate. And as we foresee it, then we select, and Oromila is there as the witness of fate. And as we make our selection, Oromila is more or less acting like a scribe. He's documenting your choice. And as you choose it, it becomes fate, right? Then we come into the world, and what happens? As soon as we come into the world, we forget, right? We forget. We forget, right? There are verses that go into detail about the Red River and the Blue River, and you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, what happens? We forget everything that we chose. So then we have to live our lives, take the journey of life, remembering, reassembling, like to remember something and then to remember it. That's our order is, reassembling us, recalling what we chose in the very beginning. And that's how we gradually come to discover ourselves. That's how you have these great breakthroughs and aha moments to say, yes, that's right. This is what I'm about. This is who I am. That's why I'm here. This is, where I find the groove. This is really my place. These are really my people. I remember, right? And so self-discovery underlies everything. It is part of the natural journey of life, right? Self-discovery. But it's essential, it's more helpful when you are conscious of that fact and you're deliberately focusing on self-discovery. You're not focusing all of your energy and your attention onto, what I call the beads, pods, and titles. Those things will show up as necessary, but that's not the path. That's not the journey even, right? Your transformation, your self-discovery, your ability to really see yourself, recognize yourself, and embody all the virtues of yourself, recognizing all the limitations of yourself, right? Knowing when to say, hey, that's as far as I can go, that's as high as I can reach, that's as deep as I can dig. Let me now reach out and get exactly the kind of help, support, tools, equipment, alliances that I need to go from across this bridge, right? I need to cross this bridge. I need to go through this tunnel. I need to fly over this hill. I need to dig under this mountain. That's, where you get specialized help. But all along the way, it's all about taking the journey. What journey are you taking? Okay, self-discovery is everything. It's essential, essential, essential. Okay, and this is particularly important for the leaders, because you can only lead people where you're willing to go yourself. So I'm talking really particularly to the leaders, the ones who are just predisposed or even preoccupied with going there within themselves, growing and expanding their self-awareness and their self-discovery and their self-mastery. I'm talking to you. I want you to join me in helping to bring about the good condition for yourself, as well as those who you are destined to serve. Visit me at obafemio.com or orishalifestyle.com, and let's start taking the next steps toward helping you live the medicine that will heal your life and heal the lives of those who you're destined to serve. I look forward to working with you. Bye for now. Odabo.